All right, well, welcome back to Between Sundays at the Lake. This next episode here, we're still working our way through the commonly misunderstood Bible verses. Last episode we looked at Joshua, probably one of, as far as Old Testament goes, I think it was probably one of my favorite books of the Old Testament, just because of just everything going on in there. I love Joshua, but we're going to go ahead and move on to the next book here, the book of Judges. As we were looking through our book of the commonly misunderstood Bible verses, there's only like a few questions in there, and I think all but one or maybe two, they all dealt with Samson. So, yeah. And the two that we grabbed out of there, I think we can not necessarily. I mean, we can answer those questions fairly easily as far as the misunderstood question part of it, but it leads to much more discussion and contemporary put in place. That's not the right term there, but the context, or but it leads to a lot more discussion anyway. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. The first question that it asked in here was about Samson. It said, "Did God use Samson's lust for accomplishing Israel's deliverance?" So, I don't know. I guess the root of the question would be, he didn't necessarily quote unquote use Samson's lust. That's probably a bad question to ask, or the wrong terminology to ask that question of. Because he didn't necessarily quote unquote use Samson's lust to accomplish Israel's deliverance. It was,
I think, a stepping stone.
A stepping stone of it. You go back to Joseph, and what did Joseph say to his brothers? What you meant for evil, God meant for good. So that's not to say that we go out and do evil just so God can do more good, because Paul talked about that too. You don't sin just so that grace abounds either. Yeah. So, it's not like you just go, well, you know what, I'm going to do evil. That way God can do good out of the evil. I'm going to prove it. No, don't do that. No. That's not going to go well for anybody. But he definitely was able to take, just like the rest of us, just like anybody, all these people in the Bible, he was able to take Samson's shortcomings or misgivings and use them for his purpose.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of where it lands the most.
Yeah. It's a weird question, because it's almost saying, did God make Samson a lustful person for his purposes, which is not what is happening there.
Yeah.
Like, Samson still has his own will and desires and things, both sinful and for the Lord, but again, God can take anything that we deem quote unquote good, or if it's bad, and make it for his purposes.
Right. Yeah, and we were just talking about like Samson, and he was a Nazirite. He was, in other words, he was set aside as almost like a sect of the culture, or of the Israelite society. He was set aside as a Nazirite, which meant that he couldn't. We looked up the rules. He was not allowed to have alcohol. He was not allowed to touch dead carcasses, and he was not allowed to cut his hair. Now, that's not to say that every Nazirite had the strength of Samson, because we know that for certain, because John the Baptist was a Nazirite. So this was something, his strength was something that was, as far as we can tell by Scripture, it was uniquely given to him.
Yeah.
Because of his Nazirite vow.
Yeah. So God's intention was to have Samson get rid of, abolish, battle the Philistines. But it said that Judges 14 clearly kind of lays out that Samson wasn't really interested in doing that in a spiritual commitment to God. So God was like, okay, if you're not going to do it for me through those, means, then we're going to go ahead and utilize what you have, which is, kind of, sinful ways. And that's how I'm going to get my product out of you is that route. And Samson kind of chose that for himself.
Absolutely, he did. And that's we were talking about that too, is, it speaks to the authenticity of the Bible when we see the quote-unquote heroes of the Bible fail. Because if you're writing a story and that you want people to grab a hold of and trust and follow, you're not going to make your heroes have faults. I mean, think about pretty much any superhero movie. They're going to have their little stumbles and falls, but technically it's not their fault. You know, it was somebody else did this or tricked them into doing that, or but God's pretty quick to point out, you know, that he picked imperfect people to do his perfect will.
Way back when we had first started the college ministry here, the Bible study was literally just me, my wife Jen, and then Andrew, and that's what it was for months. We did one of the first Bible studies we did together was I think it was called Navigating the Gospel Truths, and it was the author was Rebecca McLaughlin, and wonderful author. You should definitely check out her books. But she did that Bible study, and in it, I think it was for like the narrative portion of reading the Gospels. Exactly to what you just said. Like, it pushes the truth of it when you have things like Peter being afraid.
Right.
When you have things like the disciples running away. When you have things like, you know, like who at the time when the Gospels were written, these are people they could talk to. Like, these were the heroes of the church. These are like the patriarchs of it all, you know. And you see so many flaws, like throughout the entirety of the Gospels, of the people that were around at the time. And it just speaks volumes of the truth of it, because if you're trying to make something great and grandiose or whatever, you make them perfect. You know, heroes, you know, like superheroes, you know.
Yeah, well, and it's, you know, and then going back to you know, the question of Samson's lust accomplishing Israel's deliverance, it wasn't his lust that accomplished that. It was actually the result of where he ended up because of his lust or because of his sin that accomplished that deliverance. Right? It wasn't the lust itself. And you know, I think Jordan had said, I think it was Jordan just said, you know, did God create in him lust so that he could? No, because we all have that, but not everybody allows it to take them away. And that's the problem here with Samson, is Samson allowed his lust to take him away from God's plan for his life.
Yeah, his lust became his like defining feature, you know, as a person.
Right, and that's the, you know, so it's not necessarily that's why I said I think it's not I think it's a bad question, really, the way it's worded, and maybe somebody looks at it that way, but it wasn't necessarily his lust that God used. It was where he ended up because of his lust. But the other side of that is, I think we may have on one other episode, I heard somebody say one time that God is one of those people that would have known how God, I'm trying to think how it went. God knows what would have happened if what did happen didn't happen could have happened.
Yes,
right.
I think you said that the last time.
Yeah, a few times, you know, a few episodes ago. Well, no, somebody else said that. Like, and that's the thing. Had Samson not fallen into his lust, and he had kept his Nazirite vow the way he should have, and done it the way that God wanted him to, the end result would have still been the same.
Yes. Yeah.
But God
as
said,
in what God was trying to accomplish.
Right. And but we also need to understand, and this is the part that's hard to wrap our minds around because our human minds don't work this way, is the way that, and we'll get to it in a minute, the way that Samson was able to deliver the Israelites from the Philistines was not God's plan B.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think that, well, he tried this and he tried that, and then plan C was Jesus. No, plan A was always Jesus from the beginning.
Yep.
It just happened to be that, you know, people think that, well, he gave them the law, he gave them the 10 Commandments, right? He gave them that so that they could be perfect.
Yep.
No, because none of us can, and he knew that. Not that there's anything wrong with the law, because that's what a lot of people try to say. Well, if God knew that nobody could be perfect, then why would he give them the law that they couldn't follow? There must be something wrong with the law. No, the law is perfect. God gave us the law so that it would be, or so that we could look in the mirror and see what's wrong with us, and see that we can't do it, and see that we're not good enough. That's the point of the law. But a lot of people like to point at the law and say, well, you know, well, if the law was perfect, if God's perfect and the law is perfect, he wouldn't have needed Jesus, so Jesus was plan B. Well, no, Jesus was plan A the whole time. The law was just a mirror so that we could see how much we needed Jesus. That was the point of it.
Yeah, because short of that, you would have questioned what was the purpose
Right.
of Jesus, right?
Right, exactly. And that's the, too often we look at the law. Well,
If we could obtain it,
Right, and none of us can.
Yeah.
And that's, even when you're sharing the gospel with somebody, and there are people by our human standards that are good people, right? But then if you share the gospel with them, and you kind of point out and go, okay, well, here's God's standard, is perfection. Are you perfect? Well, no, I'm a good person. But are you okay? You're a good person. Are you a good enough person? Well, yeah, I'm good enough. And then if you just look at them and just start at the top of the 10 Commandments, and have you ever lied? Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Have you ever stolen from anybody? Yeah. Well, have you ever wanted something that somebody else had?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, by God's standards, you're not a good person, right? And they're going.
Should we keep going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I've never killed anybody. Well, yeah, that's one of them. So you kept one.
Yeah.
Good job. Right? I've never cheated on my wife. Well, okay, so you kept 2. Good job. But what about the other 8?
But I mean, Scripture says I won't even quote it because I don't know.
You break one, you broke them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what it says. If you break one of God's laws, you've broken all of God's laws. So, but no, and it's the fact that going back to what Joseph said to his brothers, his brothers had sold him into slavery and wanted to get rid of him because they didn't like him because his dad liked him more than he liked them, and he had this prophecy and probably got a little arrogant about the prophecy about, well, you guys are going to bow down to me one day. And his brothers got rid of him. And when they finally showed back up, Joseph's, second in command, basically, of Egypt. And he says, well, what you meant for evil by selling me into slavery, God meant for good, which got us to where we are, and it's going to save all of our people.
Yeah.
So it wasn't one of those. God didn't make Samson more lustful than other people just so that Samson could end up in the situation he was in and fulfill God's plan for Samson's life. Yeah. Because he would have fulfilled God would have fulfilled his plan for Samson's life if Samson would have done everything he was supposed to do. Yeah. It would have been the same end result as far as the deliverance part, but the result of Samson's life.
Yeah, it might have been around to see it.
Would have been much different.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. I was like, what do you mean? Oh.
But I mean, it did because of where his sin led him. It did eventually result in the deliverance, which was the plan for Samson all along.
Yep.
But God ended up using, he used what Samson gave him. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, you get somewhere and you go, okay, well, I'm just going to use what I got. Well, here's what I got to work with.
I kind of see it as like God saying we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the easy way or the hard way. You can do it my way or your way.
Right.
Yeah. Which way you want to do it.
Yep. God's way, Samson's way. Yep.
So, but I think it's an encouragement too to know that even though we mess up, I mean, you go through Samson's life, and we don't want to go through the whole thing, but you go through Samson's life, and the amount of times that he just simply ignored God's word and ignored his vows to God, and God still used him.
Yeah.
Was still able to. And it's an encouragement to us or it should be an encouragement to us because, thank God, because, you look at some of the people even throughout history that he's used. Mm-hmm. Look at even the people that Jesus chose to surround himself with. He had some commercial fishermen who, I don't know if you've ever been around commercial fishermen, but they're a pretty rough crowd. Mm-hmm. He picked a tax collector, which nobody liked. And we still don't like the IRS, so nobody likes tax collectors. But back then they were even worse. Yeah. And then, he picked a zealot who was, basically just looking to kill everybody. Mm-hmm. So, he can take those people that are, that's the encouragement, is he can take those of us that feel like we are completely and totally beyond help, and then turn around and use us for his His glory and His plan. So
Yeah.
That's an encouragement. You're never, and I know there's a lot of people that feel this way, but I'm here to tell you, you're never too far gone that God can't use you.
Yeah.
And you're certainly never too far gone that God doesn't love you.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people that feel that way. Well, you don't know what I've done. You don't know what I've done.
Yeah.
And that's the, God, you're never too far gone that God can't use you if you're willing to turn around, turn around and turn back to Him and let Him use you. But that's the key. You have to be willing to let Him use you. So, all right, Karl, you got the next question there?
Yeah, it's found Judges 16:26 through 27. It says, if suicide is a sin, why did God bless Samson for doing it? So I think the overall argument would be the difference between suicide and sacrificing.
Yeah.
Sacrifice.
So if you look, I guess we probably should have done this at the beginning if we were going to talk about Samson this much, because maybe there's some people that'll hear this and don't even really know the story of Samson. So, I mean, just in a quick version of Samson, it's found in the book of Judges. I think it's like 14 through 16, or maybe 13 through 16.
Some
I think it's 14 through 16. But anyway, just in a quick, nutshell of Samson is Samson was born. He was set aside as a Nazarite, which, if you don't know what a Nazarite is, we kind of told you what their vows are. But God was going to use him as a judge and use him to deliver Israel. And then Samson basically broke every one of those vows up to a point. Samson, he was I don't know what you would call him nowadays, but he was a ladies' man, to put it mildly. Yeah, womanizer. He got to the point where he finally ran into this lady named Delilah, that convinced him to share where his strength came from. If you don't know about a lot of people probably have heard the Samson and the strength of Samson, and they think they know what it is, but you're talking about a dude that picked up a donkey, the jawbone of a donkey, and killed 300 men. Maybe it was 3,000.
Yeah, 1,000.
3,000 men.
1,000.
I was thinking 300 foxes. 3,000 men with the jawbone. 3,000, not just men.
1,000.
Was
I
it
have
1,000?
killed. Yeah, I've killed
Okay.
1,000 men. Yep.
Not just men. 1,000, like real men,
Like not guys.
like warriors, like
Men,
not just
guys,
not just goat herders.
Men.
Men. But and then he at one point he caught 300 foxes and tied their tails together and
put torches in it.
Put torches in. Yeah, I mean, just the fact, if you ever tried to grab a hold of a fox,
Yeah.
they will eat you for lunch.
But have you ever thought about how ingenious that was to tie? Do you see the significance of like tying them together? As in, like, if you would have just let it go with a tail on fire, it would have just grabbed one direction and went.
Right.
But now that there's two of them involved in which direction we're going, there's a lot of
they're not agreeing on where to go.
So then they're
just
literally
running.
just staying there and letting the fire spread faster and It's like
exactly.
perfect.
So, but he caught 300 foxes, tied their tails and torches to their tails, and burnt all the Philistine crops. And same guy that a young lion jumped out at him while he was walking, and he actually caught it. And it says he tore him in half, tore the lion in half, which is, that's something in and of itself. With his hands, no weapon, just his hands. And the only 3 rules, that's the crazy thing. There was only 3 rules Samson had to follow. Like, out of all those things, 3 rules to be a Nazarite. Like, all he had to do, really, to be for his Nazarite vow, and obviously that's not the only 3 rules he had to follow, but to remain his Nazarite vow, he just couldn't drink alcohol, he couldn't touch dead stuff, and he couldn't cut his hair. And he'd already broke the first 2.
And when you think about it, all 3 of those aren't hard to follow.
No, not at all.
It's actually really easy to avoid all of those
Very
things.
simple.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
could
all 3 of them.
real smooth.
All 3 of them. All 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the third one was we couldn't cut his hair. Well, this lady Delilah that he finally ran up against his equal, I guess, as far as deceit wise. She finally convinced him to tell her where his strength came from, and it was based on his Nazarite vow, the only one left that he hadn't broken yet. And he told her, he let his lust take over, and he told her where his strength came from, which was his hair, and she had his hair cut, and then he was taken by the Philistines and lost all his strength, taken by the Philistines, had his eyes gouged out. The problem they messed up on was they forgot to keep his hair cut. So, and that kind of leads to that question that Karl had asked, which was, if suicide is a sin, why did God bless Samson for doing it? And we were talking about trying to figure that out. And, number one, suicide, I think, is a sin only because in the Ten Commandments and the law we were just talking about earlier, it says, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not murder. And, suicide, it doesn't specify thou shalt not murder another person. Now, it is not what some churches try to preach it as, is it's an unforgivable sin.
Yeah.
No, there are people that have mental health issues, and unfortunately, that's the decision that they make that they feel is the best one to make, and it's a terrible decision to make. And it's a problem in our culture today. But the biggest thing here is we need to understand, because we were talking about trying to figure it out and kind of looking at it, is it wasn't a suicide. So again, it's a bad question. The question's not asked correctly, because it wasn't necessarily that Samson committed suicide. Samson was willing to sacrifice himself to accomplish what God had set him out to do anyway.
Yeah, I think we said it before. A lot of these questions are geared towards like a non-believer that has their blinders on, that are trying to get you to stumble or fail or not have the right answer for their question here. So it's kind of geared towards like tripping you up.
Right. Well, they're trying to find inconsistencies in the Bible is what they're trying to do. They're trying to find contradictory statements in the Bible. So if they can say, well, the Ten Commandments or the law says thou shalt not murder, and then Samson killed himself, well, then he murdered himself. Well, that's not what he did, though.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, because it's like, if I painted a wall white and they said, well, why'd you paint that wall blue? Well, it's not even blue, so we're not even going to talk about it.
Right.
So, like, if suicide is a sin, then why did he bless it? Well, I don't think Samson really committed suicide, so we're not even, it's almost like...
I guess in a roundabout way you could classify it as suicide, but it's not. He was willing to... look, everything in the Bible, I think we've said this many, many times, and it is absolutely true. Everything, every story in the Bible, somehow, some way, in some way, shape, or form, ties into Jesus on the cross. Everything points to Jesus. Everything is a picture. Abraham and Isaac is a picture of Jesus. Joshua is a picture of Jesus. All these things point to Jesus. That's what everything does. And what you have really and truthfully here in this story, at the end of the story, which is the end of the story, is Samson has basically been shamed, beaten, can't see, and they bring him out basically to almost as a sideshow for this huge Philistine get-together where all the important people are at, and they're basically there to make fun of him and ridicule him and look at the great and mighty Samson and these kind of things. And Samson says, God, let me have my strength one more time. Now, in his mind, probably, we were talking about that too, in his mind, it's let me get back at these guys for what they did to me. But God granted it because it ended up being God's plan for what Samson had. Yeah. Even though maybe at the time, that wasn't why Samson wanted to do it.
Right. Well, it's that whole using his sinful nature for God's plan.
Exactly. So Samson pushes on these pillars. The entire place collapses, kills all the quote-unquote important Philistines, which basically, in essence, cuts off the head of the snake, which delivers Israel from Philistine rule.
Yeah. Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down a life for his friends.
Right.
Usually suicide is isolated to one individual, the taking of an individual's personal life.
Right.
This, Samson knew that by his actions it was going to take out him, but also 3,000 people. So that's why I think that there's the disconnect between suicide and sacrifice.
Well, and that's I was thinking about it while I was kind of trying to, the difference of the two. Suicide benefits the person, sacrifice benefits everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's kind of the difference in it. Because if you're going to make that statement, and that's the problem with that statement, if you're going to make the statement of Samson committed suicide, then you would, in essence, be making the same statement that Jesus did, because Jesus came to this earth for one purpose, and that was to die on the cross. But he didn't. It was a sacrifice, not a suicide.
Yeah.
Suicide is for a selfish reason. I mean, that's just, unfortunately, that's the truth of the matter. Suicide is always selfish. It is, because you leave people here asking questions, and I didn't really plan on going there with that, but if you're listening and you ever have those, and you're having those thoughts or those issues, or find somebody to talk to. You can come up here, one of us will talk to you. You can call us, you can Facebook us, Instagram, whatever. But suicide it's a selfish decision, because it leaves the people behind you, it leaves the people that you leave behind with the questions of, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Or what did I do that I didn't? How could I not see that coming?
Yeah, I think it creates more hurt than anything.
Right, and that's the difference between suicide and sacrifice.
Yeah, it's the mindset and the heart behind it.
Right.
Yeah, the action is virtually the same, but it's the intent behind it. Like in Samson's mind, it wasn't necessarily, oh, I hate my life right now, just end it all. It was like, I need to take these guys out.
Yeah.
Going even to the
almost
crucifixion.
let me fulfill what I was supposed to do
yeah.
anyway.
And then from to the point in the Gospels and the crucifixion, like Christ's mindset wasn't on himself; his mindset was on us.
Yeah,
it's a sacrifice.
Right, and it was because, his some of his last words on the cross was, "Father, forgive him."
Right.
Right. So the whole thing, the whole time he was doing it, he knew why he was doing it.
Yeah.
He was doing it for us.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between the sacrifice and the suicide. The sacrifice is a selfish act. A suicide is a selfish act. Sacrifice is a selfless act. Yeah, a selfless act. I think if somebody was fixing to get hit by a car and I pushed them out of the way, and I got hit by the car and killed, I don't think anybody would call that a suicide.
No.
You know what I mean? People would call that a sacrifice. And that's where you have to look at it. Is Samson wasn't, while Samson was willing to die, so was Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form that Samson was anywhere
comparison.
close to
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah.
But it is a picture of what Jesus chose to do.
Right.
Samson chose to sacrifice himself to deliver Israel from the Philistines.
Yeah.
Jesus chose to sacrifice himself for all of us to deliver us from death.
Yeah. It's definitely a picture, because both had their arms stretched out wide and took down what was afflicting God's people. For Christ it was sin, for Samson it was Philistines.
Yeah, the one thing that Satan could hold over humanity up until Jesus was death. That's what Satan had.
Yep.
And when Jesus died on the cross, was buried and raised, he doesn't have that anymore.
Yeah, he
has nothing to hold over us anymore.
Yeah.
And that's that he delivered us from that death, from the curse of death. That's the curse that we have, is death. Every one of us are going to have to face that curse at some point in our life. And because of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, we don't have to.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing, that in I guess, not necessarily exactly the same thing, but that's the same picture that we see of what Samson did for the Israelites here with the Philistines.
Yeah.
So it's a good picture. Like I said, I think it's probably a badly worded question, but like Karl said, a lot of these questions that you're going to get, you may get from somebody who isn't a believer or is an atheist, and what they're trying to find, or what they're trying to say, is that the Bible is inconsistent, or that the Bible has contradictions, or
it's faulted in some way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you may not be able to convince them with that argument, but that's I think that's the best argument is suicide versus sacrifice.
Yeah.
And
I'll also say, have grace with them, because you're also going to get people that just genuinely don't know,
right,
or are confused by it. We talked about how there's a lot of places that will teach suicide is an unforgivable sin. That was me growing up. That was very heavily pushed in the head. So sometimes people come from a place of just ignorance, not arrogance. It's
Right.
both. There's
Right.
both sides of the fence is one of those two, but definitely just have grace with it because you never know where that person's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's and look, the there's only one unforgivable sin. The Bible tells us it's the blasphemy of the Spirit, which in other words, what it's saying is, that's fancy words or Bible or Christianese for rejecting Jesus and who He is. That's really what it means. That's the only unforgivable sin. Everything can be forgiven. If I've had people ask me that question. Well, if a person has truly chose to follow Jesus and commit suicide, do they still get to go to heaven? Yeah. If one choice to sin kept us out, none of us would go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean? I surrendered my life to Jesus when I was 17, and that was 29 years ago. There hasn't been a day gone by that I haven't done something I shouldn't do. So if a sin kept us out, we'd never make it. That was the point of Jesus' death on the cross. He said, I paid for all of it.
Right.
That was, his last words on the cross were tetelestai. Right? I paid in full.
Yeah.
The debt's paid. You don't have to pay anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's not a ranking system to sin. Like Dante's Inferno isn't the reality.
no, it certainly is not.
Yeah.
And there's, just so everybody knows, there's also not any way that anybody's praying you into heaven either. When you go in the ground, your time is up. The time for decisions is now over.
Absence of the body is in the presence of the Lord.
That's it. So, all right, guys. Well, that was a fairly short one, but
That's all right.
it was only 2 questions, but I think we probably
We'll get comments. We like those shorter ones better.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, too bad.
What do you mean? We could have been getting 2 episodes out of each one.
yeah.
What?
It's like, if you guys do prefer shorter content, let us know.
Yeah.
If you prefer a longer form, let us know.
If you prefer shorter content, then stop it in the middle.
Pause.
I guess you could do that.
Stop it
yeah.
after the first question and then
Wait a
listen to
week
the
and
next
then-
question.
yeah.
That's true.
But no, I guess there was only 2 questions here in this chapter, or I mean not this chapter, in the book of Judges, and pun intended, we beat those 2 questions to death. So
You want to know how many are in the next one?
yeah, there's
One.
a bunch. There's only one. Yeah, we may not even tackle Ruth. I may
Out of
I may
curiosity,
get
guys,
I may get my wife in here to tackle Ruth because she loves that story. So, but no, thank you guys for jumping on and listening, and hopefully you enjoyed it, and make sure you share it around and like it, and again, comment. Maybe you have a question that you've heard or that you have that you can throw in the comments, and we'll try to tackle that question too. So we'll check those comments out, and you can let us know. All right. Well, that's that. So I'll go ahead and close in prayer on this one, and hope everybody has a great rest of their day or evening or whenever you're listening to this. Make sure you keep praying for us, and we love you guys, and look forward to doing it again next time. So let's go ahead and pray. Lord God, thank you for today. Thank you for all that you are, for all that you do for us. And God, we just we thank you that we are able to open your word, God, and just discuss these things and talk about these things. And God, I just pray that as we keep moving forward throughout your word, God, that we would do, number one, we would do justice for what you've given us. But number 2, God, that we would, everything that we say and do would be to honor and glorify you and you alone. God, I pray that we would always look to you to be able to be what you've called us to be. So God, I just ask you to be with us, lead us, guide us, and direct us in all that we do and all that we say. And God, I just ask all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.